Getting a driver's license in California, it's like the ultimate ticket to freedom, right? But hold on, because with that freedom comes this really, really important rule you absolutely have to know: financial responsibility. It might sound a little boring, but trust me, it's one of the most crucial things to get right before you ever turn the key.
Okay, so what in the world is financial responsibility? Let's break it down. The absolute easiest way to think about it is like a security deposit for using public roads. The state is basically saying, look, we'll let you drive, but you have to prove you can pay for any mess you might make.
So here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. We'll dig into that whole security deposit idea, go over the exact legal minimums, talk about how to prove you're protected, explore the huge gamble of driving uninsured, and finally show you how to stay covered and legal. All right, first up, let's get into the why behind this whole law. It all comes back to one simple fact. Driving isn't a right, it's a privilege, and it comes with some pretty serious responsibilities. This is where that security deposit idea really clicks into place. See, the state needs to know that if you cause an accident, there's a way to pay for injuries or fix someone's car. That proof, that promise that you can clean up the mess, well, that's what we call auto insurance. So now that we get the why, let's talk about the specific rules. California has set some very clear, non-negotiable minimums for the amount of coverage every single driver has to have. Your insurance policy isn't just some piece of paper in your glove box. It's a contract. It's a promise from your insurance company to pay for damages up to certain limits. And the numbers we're about to see, they're not suggestions. They are the absolute rock-bottom minimum required by law. First, your policy has to cover at least $30,000 for injuring or, heaven forbid, causing the death of one person in an accident that you cause. Second, if more than one person gets hurt, that coverage has to double to at least $60,000 for the entire incident. And finally, for property damage, wrecking someone else's car or hitting a fence, you need to have at least $15,000 of coverage. Now, it's really important to know who's on the hook for this. If you're under 18, a parent or guardian has to co-sign your license application, which means they're legally accepting financial responsibility for you. But the moment you turn 18, boom, it's all on you. Okay, so you've got the insurance, it meets the state minimums, you're all set, right? Well, not quite. Just having the policy isn't enough. You have to be able to prove you have it at some very critical times. You are legally required to show that proof of insurance in 3 key situations: when you take your driving test, anytime a police officer pulls you over, and of course, if you're in an accident, you have to show it to the other driver. And this brings up a huge and kind of scary question. What happens if you can't show that proof when you really, really need to? This is where things get really serious. You might hear people talk about something called an SR-22. Let me be super clear. This is not regular insurance. It's a penalty document. It's a special proof certificate that the DMV forces you to get after your license has already been suspended for something big, like driving without insurance. Bottom line, this is a piece of paper you never, ever want to need. And that leads us to the most important part of this whole conversation: the massive, potentially life-altering risk you take when you decide to drive in California without insurance. Forget about a little ticket or a slap on the wrist. If you are in an accident, any accident, and you don't have insurance, the state's reaction is severe. They don't just charge you some money. They effectively lock the doors to the road and throw away the key. Just look at this number: 4 years. That is the length of the mandatory license suspension. And here is the craziest, most important part. This happens even if the accident wasn't your fault. Simply being in a collision without having insurance triggers this huge penalty. And getting your license back is a long, difficult journey. For the first full year, it's a hard stop. No driving, period. Then, for the next 3 years, you have to get that SR-22 we just talked about and keep it active without any mistakes. It is a multi-year consequence for a single bad decision. So yeah, carrying insurance isn't just a good idea, it's a non-negotiable rule. It's what protects you from potentially bankrupting financial problems and, of course, from that devastating 4-year license suspension. Okay, I know that was all pretty intense, but after hearing those consequences, the solution becomes crystal clear. So let's walk through the simple, proactive steps to make sure you stay covered, stay legal, and stay on the road. The process is actually pretty straightforward. First, find an insurance agent or provider you like. Second, do a quick check online to make sure they're licensed by the state. And third, buy a policy that meets, or even better, exceeds those minimums we discussed.
And what if you're worried about the cost? The state has an answer for that too. California actually has a low-cost automobile insurance program for drivers who qualify based on their income. The goal is to make sure everyone has a pathway to being legal. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to this one question. When you really think about it, is saving a little bit of money each month really worth the gamble of losing your freedom to drive for 4 whole years? The choice seems pretty clear, doesn't it?